Well, it's time for Monday Mastery. It's showtime. I'm your host, author, and dating coach Rick Sodebeer. And I want to welcome you all here today. I hope you had a great week and just a fine weekend. It was a little flaky here, but we'll deal with it. So, anyway, I'm going to dive right into today's topic because I seem to have struck a chord with this one. And the subject is, when did you start dating after you were divorced or widowed? And I got just a wide variety of comments. In fact, I'll read a couple of them to you here shortly. But it's absolutely incredible the diversity in comments. One gentleman has been widowed for about 9 months. He started dating about 4 months ago, so that means just 5 months in. And fortunately, he says he's had 5 dates, and fortunately, he says he wouldn't date any of them. And I think that's a good thing. That's giving him time to really spend time with himself, so to speak. And I think that, and I've said that so many times that men and women are generally better at taking care of themselves. And it's going to give a little. Sorry about that. I'm just playing with my camera a little bit here. Women are generally better at taking care of themselves through the grieving process. Some aren't, don't misunderstand me, but in general, women will take more time than men. The worst thing that I've seen is men just diving right back into the dating world after becoming widowed, and not taking time to grieve the loss of not only the loss of their wife, but their loss of the marriage, because in my opinion, you have 2 losses there, and they both have to be grieved over, and you have to recover from that, and it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in 2 weeks. It doesn't happen in, and some of it will depend on how long you were married before they passed. Hey, Paul, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And it just we all heal and grieve and heal at different rates, and that's okay. And what I try to share with you are general guidelines. And when it comes to men tend to move past the grief stage much quicker. I guess we tend to compartmentalize things and move on. But if we're not careful about dealing with all of the issues, they're going to come back to haunt us at some point. So, that being said, a lot of us dive back into dating. And I'll be the first one to raise my hand that within a couple of weeks of being divorced, I was back on the dating scene, and I learned a lot of hard lessons over that especially the first year and a half, and and that's how I know what it takes to get past getting past being divorced. And it literally for me, I was with my ex for over 25 years, almost exactly 25 years. And, it wasn't until 3 or 4 years later that I really started to come into my own. I started to regain my sense of humor, and it was something that my ex didn't like. She didn't like my sense of humor, and well into the marriage, it was kind of a hard time to start learning that lesson. And it just ended up that I ended up walking on eggshells for the last 5 or 8 or 10 years of our marriage. And so it was just no fun. And so It didn't mean we didn't have good times along the way, but it got to the point where we couldn't say anything to each other, and it would trigger, things would be triggered, and I would be triggered, she would be triggered by something. So, we have to. My point here is, it takes time to get past those things. It takes time to recognize we all acquire triggers, things that are said, things that are done, a look on the face, can all trigger some emotion, and can be a deep emotion in us that just brings up all sorts of negative emotions. And it takes time for us to even recognize some of those things. And so, and this is all work that you have to do on your own. There's no magic wand that I can wave over you, and no magic potion that I can give to you to say, okay, this will make everything all better, and you can just go out and date and not have to worry. And no, it doesn't work that way. So we all have to take that time, and one of the most critical things that I found is to be able to take that time for ourselves to get emotionally healthy. If you came from a very toxic relationship, a narcissistic relationship, an abusive relationship in any way, shape, or form, it takes time to get past that. It may take counseling or therapy to get past that. And if you really struggle, and even to the point where you may have shades of PTSD from an abusive relationship, you really need to work on those things. You need professional help, and that's help that I admit that I can't give. I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, I'm just a coach. But when I see and my students tell you that when they start dating, hey Terry, thanks for joining in. And Terry says, I was widowed 3+ years before I started dating. That was 4 years ago. I would stop and start again several times. And Terry, I think we all do that. We all get to a point where, we start going along, and for one reason or another, either we started dating somebody and we started to have feelings for them, and all of a sudden that didn't end, and then we're left to start over again. It can also be that you just invest a lot of time in dating and going through online dating apps and going out and meeting people, and it just becomes it can start to feel like drudgery. It can start to feel like a chore, and we have to avoid that. We have to step back from dating if we start to feel that way, because if you're dating with a mindset that this is drudgery, oh, this is work, I just don't want to go on another first date, well, guess what? That attitude is going to walk into the room before you. It's just and it's going to taint the date. So it becomes an issue, because it puts a negative spin on the date. And Paul says, I have a friend that told me after my wife passed, time is your friend, Paul. Absolutely. And because Paul and Paul, let's see, let me get Terry here real quick. I would stop because I got tired of the work and not finding quality people. I tell you, that's a common theme, Terry. And hey, Lonnie, thanks for joining in. And Paul, your friend was absolutely correct. Time is your friend, because whether you're divorced or whether you're widowed, we all morphed or changed for our relationship or for our marriage. and it takes time to peel back the layers of, to number one, to rediscover who you are. Now that we're all in that single world, we have to discover what's important to us again. For those of you that are widowed, you have to rediscover what's important. You had plans, retirement and beyond, travel, whatever it was, and now those plans are null and void. And it takes time to peel back the layers and figure out, who am I and what do I want to do? And a lot of times you have to go right back to the very beginning of dating and look at who you were when you first got married. And the same thing goes for those of us that are divorced. We have to go back and take a look and see who we were back then and what changes have we made. How did we morph? Were they good changes? Were they bad changes? And which direction do you want to go? Hopefully you want to peel back the layers of the good changes, or to remove the bad changes and maintain the good changes. I'm sorry. Well, Lonnie. I'll get back with you in just a second. A couple of people popped in here. Hey, Liz. Thanks for joining in. Liz says, I've been widowed 21 years. Started dating about 10 years ago. And after my children were done with school, had a wonderful marriage. My experience dating was mixed. Finding someone who wanted the same kind of relationship was tough. It still is. And it's Liz. We all go through that. Because we should be looking for that extraordinary relationship. You don't want to replace. You can't replace what you had, but you can look for another extraordinary relationship, and that just takes time. We've all grown. We've all developed habits. We've developed likes and dislikes over the years. It's not like when we were 20 years old and anybody that showed affection for us had a strong possibility. It's different now because we have more must-haves. We have recognizable deal breakers. I think when we're 20, 25 years old, we don't recognize deal breakers, or we ignore them. And so it's important that we learn from our experiences over life and over our lifetime. And I think that those experiences form our basis for who we look for in the future. Lonnie, I'm coming back to you. Lonnie says, my wife passed away 10 years ago. I've struggled to find someone new, but I'm putting it all in God's hands. Absolutely. And Lonnie, and you followed me. We've known each other from Lake of the Ozarks area and beyond. Hey, Deborah, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And I'm sure you've heard me say this. You've got to be crystal clear about your must-haves. You have to know exactly what you're looking for in a relationship. You also have to know your deal breakers, and those are your boundaries. When you start seeing somebody that throws up red flags, or your antennas start going up, and from the old Lost in Space, warning, danger, Will Robinson. You have to take those signs seriously, and you have to take a look back and say, is this somebody that I really want to spend time with? And I contend that when you're paying attention, you can drastically reduce the time and the effort that you put into dating. I can't say the time and effort. You can drastically reduce the time and effort with the wrong people, because I firmly believe that if you know what you're looking for, if you're mentally and emotionally healthy, you know what you're looking for, you know what your deal breakers are, you can start to tell whether somebody's going to be a good match in 30 days or less. And when I say good match, I mean have the probability of dating further or wanting to explore further. If you don't see that possibility in 30 days or less, and sometimes you can start telling even in a couple of dates. And it doesn't mean that somewhere down the road something's not going to pop up and happen and break the deal, but it's still it still will give you a foundation on what to look for. And Terry says, I got worried at first because I had turned 60 and thought I needed to hurry up. Now I know I'm in no rush. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. And Terry, I hear that from so many people. And the older we get, the more in a rush or more in a hurry some people seem to be. And it's like I've told you on our group coaching through the course. Shameless plug here. That course that Terry's working on with me is Dating Made Simple Academy, and and Terry's. We're on our last week of group coaching. We've had 8 weeks of group coaching, and I think everybody's had little epiphanies along the way. And for me, it's just so awesome to see you guys, come to some realizations. So hopefully, through that, and through that course, and probably some of you here have heard me say that, I'll use my life as an example, or my life timeline. I may have, we'll say, 25 years left. Move my hands over. And if I've got 25 years left, I'm willing to spend the next 20 years looking for that special someone, and just spend the last 5 years of my life with someone extraordinary. I would much rather do that. I would much rather do that than to spend the next 25 years in a mediocre relationship. What I'm trying to convey here is that you have to be patient. I don't care how old you are. You have to be active. You have to be actively dating. And that takes effort. And sometimes, like Terry says, you just got to start, you got to stop. But, the key is to never give up. If you give up looking, guess what? Your soulmate you're making it so much harder on your soulmate, because you got to think about they're out there looking for you too. And Phil says, I lost my best friend and wife 6 years. 6 years. I'm assuming 6 years ago to cancer, and I'm looking into a new best friend. That's awesome. I'm not that you lost your wife, that you're looking for a new best friend, and that's what it takes. And thank you for this shameless plug, Terry. Terry says it's an awesome course. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And we've had, and in that, we've done some really good conversations, learning from not just, just from sharing from each other's experiences. And I'm proud. Terry made an accomplishment this week that she shared with the group in our private group page. So that's pretty awesome. Now, I'm going to bear with me while I read this. This is kind of a long message that I received this afternoon, but well, I'll just read it, and ladies, I especially want you to listen to this, because this is the type of guy that I think you want to look for. Hey, MK, thanks for joining in. I don't speak French or read French, so I don't know what you said, but thanks for being here. This guy he follows me on Facebook here, and he says, as my mentor told me, you've been locked up for 24 years and you're like a lion that just got out of a cage. I had no idea about online dating. So what did I do? I went on 4 sites and learned a lot of lessons. Now this is, and that there's a big wow after that. And that's, whenever you dive into something new, there are going to be a lot of lessons learned. Everything looked good. I had to learn how to date all over again. I learned first what catfishing was. Oh geez. That was a lesson on trust. Made sure hang on one second. Made sure I did FaceTime prior to meeting up, and not to spend an arm and a leg on a nice place on a stranger. And this is something that I try to share with everybody. The first date should be very simple. It should be coffee or cocktails. You're not committed to a 2-hour event. You're not committed to spending a large amount of money, or at least the guys aren't. And ladies, you don't want to be in a position to be out on a date with a jerk that's going to make you pay for half of a very, very expensive meal. Coffee or cocktails, you can be out in 15 or 20 minutes if it's not good. You have your cup of coffee, saying thanks, I'm just not feeling connection, and move on. Or you can have lunch together, or it can move to dinner. If you're out for cocktails after work, you can and things are going well, saying, I'm enjoying the conversation. Would you like to continue this conversation over dinner? And let's see. That was an experience. That was an expensive lesson, which means he learned the hard way. Make sure their actions match their words. Looked for red flags. Bringing baggage from, and this is what I've told so many of you. In fact, we just had this conversation not too long ago. Looked for red flags. Bringing baggage from previous relationships. Are they generally kind and good-hearted and not consistently complaining and unhappy? I stopped becoming a fixer. Guys, that's an important point. Don't try, and ladies, this works for both of you. Don't try to fix somebody. You're not there to fix someone. Leave that to the therapists or the counselors. It's not your job. Your job is to find somebody that's already healthy and in a good place. And finally, not looking for someone who's still trying to find themselves at this age. And I think he's a little bit younger than me, which I'm 65. So recently found that I need to have a majority of the same core values: health, financial, responsibility, religion, and love languages, etc. Just learned a new love language from a wonderful woman, number 6, have your back. And I think that's an awesome observation, that I think when you find your soulmate, I think you're naturally going to have each other's back, and that is so important to be able to do that for each other. When you find that extraordinary person, it's just such an amazing connection, and you just enhance each other's lives. For me personally, the ability to compromise without compromising your character, have fun and able to laugh at yourself, love like no one else, able to meet me halfway, date to find a BFF in hopes it forms into a relationship. Hope some of this helps. Absolutely. I've been single for almost 3 years now, and tried to work on my last relationship, and found that she was too materialistic for my taste. Time to gather myself and start over in time. Best advice? One of my first dating app conversations said, go date first for a while and uh, go date first for a while and get some seat time. I don't want to have, let's see, I don't want to go on that ride with you. But it's very true. Anyway, that was from that was just one of the comments that came in today, and so ladies, number one, there are great guys out there. There are great guys that are trying to do it right and have to learn a lot of lessons. And just as ladies, you find guys that are broken and are fixer uppers. Guys, we find the same thing. We find a lot of you ladies are broken and fixer uppers. That's not our place, ladies. It's not your place to fix us, or to fix the guy, and just stop looking for someone that has a lot of the qualities you want, but not all of them. If you have any red flags, move on, because all you're going to do is end up dealing with things you don't want to deal with later on. Liz says, how can you be actively dating when you don't know where to find someone? Well, Liz, that's a great question. There are a lot of places to look, and a lot of it starts with developing your must-have list. And for most of you, a lot of you know what I say about must-have lists. They're characteristics or traits that are must-haves. They're non-negotiable. These are things that you absolutely must have in your next relationship. And it can be anything from looks to finances to helping around the house, whatever it is that's important to you. What are the characteristics or the traits that you want? If it's somebody that likes to go out, I know where you're from, Liz. So I mean, if it's somebody that likes to go out snowmobiling or four-wheeling, if it's somebody that likes to, if you're looking for somebody that likes to be active or likes to watch movies with you, those are things that need to be on your list. And then you need to develop a list of deal breakers. And your deal breakers are also non-negotiable. And those are traits that the minute you spot that, the first words out of your mouth should be next. And it's not cold, it's not cruel, and it may not be anything terrible, but it's things that you don't want to deal with. A lot of, for me, and I'll be very simple. It's cats, tattoos, and porn. If any one of those three is a red flag for me and a deal breaker, I'm out. And Liz says, honesty is number one. I am game to be active and learn new things. Well, and I want you to be even more specific than honesty, because a lot of I hear so many times, I want somebody honest, I want somebody loyal, I want somebody that will just love me. Well, let's look at that in a little more critical light. Who wants to date somebody that's going to lie to them? Who wants to date somebody that's going to cheat? Who wants to date somebody that doesn't love them? Those are all very common and very generic, and I'm not picking on you, Liz. This is for everybody. Those are all very generic traits. I'm talking about getting specific. One of my a couple of mine off of my list are: must be helpful around the house, must earn a decent living, must want to be with me and not need to be with me, must be smoke free. These are all specifics, and they're all characteristics or traits that you specifically want. And it doesn't make any difference how long your list is, Liz. I have a dear friend whose list is 5 items long. She doesn't care about the rest. For me, my list is about 36 items long. And a couple of those are actually aging out, because when I made my list 10 or 12 years ago, the earning, it must earn a decent income, is aging out because we're at retirement age, or I'm at retirement age. So some of those things can age out. That list can change, but what you'll find is when you first start on, and the list must be written. So if you're just starting, assuming you're just starting the list today, just think through the things that you absolutely want to have in your next relationship and write it down. You'll think of things tonight, and then tomorrow you'll think of another couple, and by the end of the week you'll think of a couple more things. The music might be a trigger for you, and to trigger some other ideas. Another one of mine must be able to dance in the kitchen. And I'm not talking about dancing the samba or two-stepping. I'm talking about being able to move around each other gracefully or reasonably well in the kitchen without tripping over each other. There are some people that I've dated that you get in the kitchen with them, and they're under your feet, or I'm under their feet the whole time, and it just doesn't work. And Liz says, I have a long list. And the question, Liz, the big question is it written down? And so anyway, those are, the big thing to pay attention to here is, a lot of people, a number of the people that I talked to said they jumped into dating immediately after, or within a couple of weeks of being divorced, some a couple of months, but they never took time to get their head straight, to recover from the loss of the relationship. And Liz says, yes, it is written down. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Now, then make out your deal breaker list, and your deal breakers are going to be non-negotiable. That's important. Then to further answer that question, take a look at your list. Where are you going to, and you sometimes have to think outside the box. Where are you more likely to find somebody that is going to fit those characteristics? And I'll just use a couple of examples that if you happen to let's talk about golf. You may not enjoy the game, but somebody that you date might. So what better way to meet a guy is go take a Saturday morning golf lesson, where it's going to be the golf course is going to be filled with guys. A shooting range, that's another great place. Guys, if you're looking, try a cooking class, or a wine and painting class. There's a lot of little art studios that you bring your own bottle of wine, and they give you a canvas and some paints, and they give you a picture to paint and try to do your best. Those are some great places to meet somebody else. Online dating, and I know because of your area, the Liz, there may not be a lot of choices there, so you're going to have to expand your horizons and look outside the area. It's you have to look where the people are, and that's not to say that there isn't somebody great in your area. It's just they may not they may not present themselves in that way. And that's another aspect. You have to make people aware that you're looking. Your friends, you have to make them aware that you're looking. You have to be out and be social. You can't. It's almost impossible to find you if you're at home sitting on the couch. I don't know your outside activity, or how active, how proactive you are about going to charity events, going to social events, church, and there's the grocery store, any place that there's a line that you're standing in can be a place. You have to learn how to talk to anybody, anywhere, anytime, and those are some tricky things, because a lot of us can be shy and say, oh no, I could never talk to somebody. Well, you have to learn. It's all a matter of, and I've been not chastised. I've been criticized a little bit because your dating is more or less marketing yourself. You're presenting yourself to be a someone else's lifetime partner. I mean, at least that's the way I look at it. I assume that we're all looking for that lifetime partner, and that wanting to spend the rest of our lives with someone, with that one special one. So you have to look at this as a it's not you don't want to look at it as a job interview, but your online profile should be thorough and not just slapped together. It should have great pictures of you. It should show you in doing the things that you like to do, and current pictures. Don't dodge any questions on online dating profiles. Answer all the questions, because it helps. Number one, it helps the algorithms within those dating sites to help to make better recommendations for you. Hey Glenn, thanks for joining in. Let me grab your comment here. Glenn waited 2 years after the breakup to start dating again. That's awesome. That and that's those are the types of things that you have to do. You wait, you heal, and then you start moving on. And we almost all of us know when we're really ready. To me, the guideline is that when I get comfortable being alone, when I'm comfortable being single, then I know I'm emotionally ready to date. Then I'm ready. I don't necessarily want to be single for the rest of my life, but I accept the fact that it is a possibility, and then I'm open to really dating from a healthy standpoint, from a position of power as opposed to a position of weakness. When you're dating because you're needy, because you're lonely, because you don't want to be alone, you're dating from a position of weakness, and that's when you're going to get hurt. That's when you're going to be taken advantage of, and that is probably the worst place to be dating, mentally to be dating from. And Liz says, funny you should say golf. Took lessons 2 years ago and love it. Well, there you go. Go take some more lessons on a Saturday morning when there's a lot of guys around. And obviously those in those situations, not every guy's going to be single, but you're bound to meet some single guys out there. And after you're done, you go into the clubhouse and have a cocktail or have a glass of milk or whatever, a soda, whatever it is you want, and you get to meet you get to meet other golfers and start to have conversations and start talking about the sport. Oh, how did you do today? And it just opens yourself up to a lot of different possibilities. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be your soulmate, but you're out there being active, and you meet somebody who'll introduce you to 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 the right one. It's It's a network marketing thing. And Paul says, so do you want us to meet meet at the produce section? Hey, I have met a couple of wonderful women, just in the grocery store aisles. It's, and again, Paul, it goes back to being able to strike up a conversation with anyone, anywhere. And any time. I was in a very busy grocery store in a neighborhood I wasn't familiar with, and I was just traveling through the neighborhood to get back home, and I was looking for items, and I saw this woman walking in the opposite direction looking for stuff, and I said, I'm not familiar with this store. Do you know where I might find this and this? And she says, I'm not familiar with this store either. So we started helping each other shop. We had a wonderful conversation. I asked her out for a date, and we just could never coordinate our times. But it's but that's how you start a conversation. And some conversations I've started, it's just it's just for fun. It's just to put a smile on somebody's face. And I was standing in line. Oh, and this was a couple of years ago. It was a Sunday brunch after church, and we went to a local restaurant that puts on a beautiful Sunday afternoon brunch. And there was a woman standing there, and she was kind of picking around at the food. And I just looked at her and I says something to the effect of, "Lady, would you hurry up? You're holding up the whole line." And she just looked at me, and I'm big grin on my face. She laughed. She says, "Yeah, I know, I'm sorry." And we just bantered back and forth the rest of the way through the line. So it's just, and she was married, and I had no intentions of trying to pick her up or trying to hit on her. It was just a fun conversation. And when you start doing that, it just makes the conversation so, being able to start a conversation so much easier. Hey, Nancy, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. And Terry says, I've talked to guys in the produce section several times. There you go. See? So, Paul, that's not, now that I think about it, that's not a bad place to start a conversation with a woman, because I don't, if you're looking for an avocado. I don't know how to pick out an avocado. I can pick out a pretty good cantaloupe, but I have no clue. I don't know how to pick out asparagus. So it's and even if you do say, I'm not really sure about this asparagus. Do you know how to tell if it's good? And it can be just as simple as that. And you just never know how many conversations you can, what conversation is going to lead where. But it's all about being accessible. It's all about being open to the conversation. It's all about being, first of all, and most importantly, mentally and emotionally healthy and ready to have those conversations. You can't be carrying any baggage like the letter I read. You can't. You have to leave your baggage at home. And don't misunderstand me. The baggage is hey, Sharon, thanks for joining in. Baggage is something that builds our personalities and creates who we are. But to carry some of the negativity and the anxiety and the hostility towards past relationships, if you're walking around saying all men are cheaters, all men are liars, all the good ones are taken, guess what? The only ones you're going to find are the cheaters, the liars, or the bottom feeders. It's just that simple. When you have the mindset that when you have a negative mindset, it's the reticular activating system that's kicking in, and you find what you focus on. And if you're focusing on the negative traits, so many people, probably 90%, 95% of the people I talk to for the first time can tell me more about what they don't want than what they do want in a relationship. Well, guess what? When you know more about what you don't want, and I shared this with my coaching group inside the Dating Made Simple Academy, that it's like shopping for a car. When's the last time you went shopping for a car with a list of features that you didn't want? You walk in. When's the last time you walked into a car dealer and said, "I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want this," and listing the items that you don't want, but had no clue to what you did want? It's the same thing. So when you're ready to date, you have to make sure you know exactly what you want, because when you start focusing on those positive aspects of a relationship, those are the things that you're going to find, or you're going to start finding. Now, let me take this comment here. Hey, Phil says gardening department can be a good place to meet growing relationships. There you go. Or budding relationships. And Terry says he must be a non-smoker. There you go. See, it must be smoke-free, must be non-smoker. And guess what you start focusing on? If I tell you that if you tell me that you don't want anybody that smokes, what's the picture that you have in your mind? And hey, Geneva, thanks for joining in. So if you say no smokers, what's the picture you have in mind? I'll bet you dollars to donuts that you've got a picture of a smoker in your mind. Well, guess what? When you start looking around and you start looking for guys or women that you think are attractive, you're going to start spotting the ones that are smoking, because that's what you're focused on. Even though you're saying no smokers, well, guess what? Smokers is the key word there, and that's what you're going to find. When you start turning that around and saying something like must be smoke-free or must be a non-smoker, what's the picture that comes to your mind? It's instantly going to be a non-smoker, somebody that does not have a cigarette in their hands. So it's very important to be very clear, to be crystal clear about what you want and very clear about what you don't want, because those are your guidelines, those are your boundaries, and you will find that some people will try to chip away at those, and they say, "Oh, come on, it's not that bad if I smoke. I'll promise I'll quit." Well, come back to me in a year after you're smoke free. Come back when you're smoke free after for a year. Let me say it that way, and. Terry says, I like calling it smoke-free. There you go. So, it's and people will try to chip away at, it's really not that important that I help around the house, is it? It's not really that important that I contribute financially, is it? Well, they're just trying to chip away at your boundaries, at your must-haves, at your deal breakers, because they recognize that they don't fit what you're looking for, and they're trying to break down your walls or your barriers or your boundaries for selfish reasons. It has nothing to do, and that should be a huge red flag right there for all of you. When somebody tries to tell you that it shouldn't be, that your must-have list shouldn't be that important, or your deal breaker list shouldn't be that important. They're doing that for a selfish reason. They're trying to bring you down and help you, or and cause you to settle. And you should never, 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 never be settling for less than extraordinary in any relationship. And that's when I talked about it earlier. Hey, Jill, thanks for joining in. When let's just take Jill's here. Jill says, I've been divorced almost 8 years, haven't dated romantically yet. And that's okay. And everybody, the question is, do you want to? Some people get brutally hurt in relationships, but I think and we all take time to heal and or grieve and heal at different rates. And some of us do things. Some of us do things quickly. Some of us don't. And the idea is to try to put yourself past that. Work at putting yourself past the past. Moving out of that. And if you truly want to be with somebody, then you have to recognize at some point. And I'm not picking on you, Jill. It's just, this is for everybody. If you want to ultimately be with somebody, you have to recognize that, well, it ain't going to happen just by me sitting at home. Again, you have to be out. You have to be social. You have to be in contact with other people. I know from personal experience, being up here in northern Wisconsin, I spend a lot of time working. I spend some time putzing around on my boat up here, and I spend some time putzing around on some real estate, commercial real estate that I have. That and I'm not saying this for bragging reasons. I'm just saying that I have a lot of things, and so it takes up a lot of my time, and I just at this time right now I'm not devoting a lot of time to dating. And then also there's not a big audience here. Let's put it that way. So and when I get back on down to the Kansas City area or Florida or wherever I end up this year for the winter, then I'll start again, because I won't have these distractions up here. So anyway, any thoughts, questions that I have not covered today? And like I said, this was a hot topic. I received probably 8 or 10 emails today and messages about dating, and probably the scariest one was the gentleman who had been married for 19 years and started dating within 4 or 5 months of his wife's passing. And I just I see nothing but problems with that scenario. But there are some people that and another gentleman, another guy that follows me regularly, said he's taken a couple of years away, and but there's a woman that he knows that he keeps jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship, basically a serial monogamist, and never takes time to heal from the loss of the last relationship. So consequently, and I've worked with people like that, and it is a nightmare to try to peel back all those layers and get through all of that baggage, because they carry it into each relationship. And I don't care whether you're a man or a woman, you're carrying a lot of negative baggage there, and a lot of hurt and a lot of pain, and it just doesn't go away. And finding somebody else to replace the last one isn't going to cure what ails you. It's the you have to get to a point where you're mentally and emotionally healthy, and there are a lot of ways of going about that, and some of it could be counseling or therapy to help you move past. dig into some neuro-linguistic programming, and some good counselors can help you work through that. And neuro-linguistic programming and for an example that I that happened to me. My father and I just butted heads for years and years and years and years, and he I grew up being called stupid and an idiot. And it wasn't until, and for years, until I was 52 years old, that was lurking in the back of my head, and I lived in fear that people would find out that I am stupid and an idiot. And and it wasn't until one day my best friend and I were having a conversation. We were sharing some thoughts and about our friendship and our man love, I guess, because we shared a lot of things over the last 25 or 30 years, and it was just one day we were having a conversation, and he shared some things about how he viewed me in his life, and how he viewed our relationship, and all of a sudden it clicked. I replaced my father's voice with my best friend's voice, and those words are the words that roll around in my head now. And it just made a world of difference for me. But it was that quick. And it can happen that quickly. But you have to be in a mental and emotional state to be able to receive those types of things. Let me get caught up here. Paul says, regarding must-haves, is it okay to say you want someone to like an activity and or tolerate it? Sure it is. If it's important to you, Paul, then it should be on your must-have list. And it doesn't mean that, from personal experience, I know that they may roll their eyes and say, yeah, I'm probably never getting involved. But if it turns out that you have a really deep connection in a variety of different areas, they may gravitate towards it, and just because of their love for you, they will probably become a partial participant, or at least a sideline participant, because it's something that you enjoy. So if that's important to you, Paul, make sure it's on your list. And if they don't like it, then you have to make the decision that yeah, this isn't going to work, because this is a significant part of my life. And I hope that answers that, Paul. And Geneva says, I think I'm super close mentally being ready to date again. It's been 3 years. I'm feeling the best I've felt in years. Anyway, oops, sorry about that. I forgot to turn my phone off. Ha. Anyway, yes, that's awesome, Geneva. I think that when you get to a point where you're comfortable being alone, and I'm not saying that you want to be alone, but you're comfortable with your own company, and that it beats being out with someone that's no fun, then you're in a good place. I think you're getting very close to being in that awesome position of dating from a position of power, and you have that power when you're comfortable being alone, and you don't have to have somebody in your life. You can want somebody, but you don't have to have somebody. And Terry says, I've seen too many jump the gun and get into a relationship much too soon and end up divorced a month later. If people are lonely, I suggest joining a meetup group and get out just for making friends and being out with like-minded people. Absolutely. And another good observation there, Terry, to add to that it's when we all become widowed or divorced, primarily all of our friends are married. very few of us are going to have single friends left. So the important part is when you do become single again, for either reason, it's time to get out and start developing at least a circle of single friends, if not multiple circles. And the reason for having multiple circles of single friends is each circle is going to have different personality. And some of them might overlap a little bit, but each of those circles is going to have a different personality. And it's going to introduce you to other people that you don't know. And this is the networking part of dating and or pre-dating, and so that you get out there and you have other people to do things with. Because a lot of us, a lot of people have problems being single and going out with friends that are married. They feel like the third wheel. And it's not necessarily the case, but and a lot of times it's just hard to see, happy couples holding hands, laughing and giggling, and I mean, you're all having a good time, but there's that. Yeah, I wish I had that someone to be here holding my hand. I wish I had someone to put their arm around me or my arm around them. So it can feel awkward at times. So that's why it's so important to develop that circle of single friends. Doesn't mean that you abandon your married friends. It just means you have other people to do things. Other friends that have the singleness in common. And Terry says, and Geneva says, absolutely agree, 100%. Awesome. I'm so glad. It's so important, Geneva. I'm so proud of you based on a couple of other conversations that we won't dive into here. But I'm so proud. I'm so excited for you, because of the progress I've seen you make over the last, I don't know, year and a half, that you've been participating in Monday Mastery. I think that's just awesome. And Terry says, I have multiple circles of friends, and some do overlap. See, that's what I'm talking about, folks. Terry's doing it right. Terry even had a breakthrough this week. So, and I won't share that, but with everybody. And I see we're just over the hour. And I want to thank everybody for joining in, for everybody's participation. This was an awesome conversation, at least for me. Your comments were great. Thank you, everybody, for joining up. I hope you have a great and blessed week. And until showtime next week, have a great week, an awesome weekend, and I will see you then. And for those of you that may tune in later, I am author and dating coach Rick Soderbeer and your host of Monday Mastery. We'll see you all next Monday. Have a great evening, everyone. Love you guys.